My mouth is so dry. Excuse me. I live in a condo where there's baseboard heating, like radiator heating, water heating, and it's been like -40 for over a week now here. And there's not a lot of airflow, the humidity's going, but yeah, dry lips, not fun. Are you on the market for a new camera? Sony, Canon, Nikon, Fujifilm? There's so many options nowadays. There's so many price points nowadays. The options are endless. What a time to be alive. This video, I'm gonna talk about my experience so far with the a7S III and whether it's the camera for you. Let's go. Quick disclosure before we get into this. These are my thoughts, my feelings, the vibes I get from the camera. I am not sponsored, I am not an ambassador for Sony, and I am just here to try to help you make a better decision like YouTubers were there for me. So, with that being said, the Sony a7 III. Is this camera right for you? Well, there's a few things we have to consider. So I guess the first question you need to ask yourself is, what are you using the camera for? Is it for professional use or beginner use? Intermediate? You gotta ask yourself that question. Are you using this more for photo or for video? Do you have client paid work? These are questions you need to ask yourself. So because I'd like to actually finish this video on the a7 III, just because, you know, we got that flip out screen, I'm more comfortable with it as starting to do these videos. I'm just gonna talk a few things quickly while holding the camera. So right now I have the small rig cage on it. Nice cage. The thing I like about this cage is that although it's only a 1/4 inch screw at the bottom, sometimes that tends to leave the cage twisting a bit or loosening. But the good thing with this one, I don't know if you can see it there, but it attaches onto one of the rings where your straps would go. That right there prevents it from wobbling or doing any loosening of any kind. I like this one. I think this was 98 bucks, maybe even cheaper on Amazon. I can leave a link in the description. Like everybody knows, flip out screen, great. Works fine for me. I've had no issues with it. It's great for vlogging, great for low down shots, whatever you're doing. It's good to have no matter what. If you're not making a camera with a flippy screen, I don't really know what's going on. Ergonomics. So this camera is a lot heavier than the a7 III. I shouldn't say a lot heavier, but it definitely is heavier. It feels more bulky, but in a good way. That's gonna give you better controlled shots when you're trying to stabilize your shooting handheld. The handle here seems to be protruding a little bit more, which gives you a better grip. Whether you're holding it this way, up, however you're moving it, it seems like you got a better grip where now your pinky is able to situate somewhere, especially if you have this cage, your pinky will just sit right on top of that, which is like really nice. Right along here is where we have our 2 SD drives. When you slide this, it doesn't automatically pop open like the older Sonys. You need to actually slide this and pull out towards you, and then it will pop out. So I actually like that. Some people say it was kind of annoying, but I actually like that because and we'll get into this later, but if you're using those expensive CF Express cards and for some reason, let's say it dropped out, which I don't think that really happens often anyways. I feel like if you're putting expensive cards into here, this is a good lock mechanism, just so you don't lose data, you don't actually pop this open, tear off the door, possibly get something in here and damage your data. So I like the lock mechanism. It's good for me. Same batteries as the a7 III, which is sweet. One thing that is an issue with this is that if you use aftermarket batteries from like RAV or newer, anything like that, it's going to give you a warning on the camera that pops up and lets you know that, hey, you're using an aftermarket battery, would you like to continue type thing. Viewfinder's great. I mean, I think it's what, 9 million dots or whatever they claim it is. When you're switching the dial here, you can't just free switch it. So again, there is a little button that you need to press in the middle here, and once you press that, you can turn. As soon as you release from that button and you try to turn this, you cannot spin the wheel, which is still kind of cool because I've been in situations where I've accidentally switched the mode button during recording. Either I started recording in the wrong mode, or I was wondering, well, why is this like this? And why is my aperture being controlled on its own? And then I'm like, oh, I accidentally switched the dial. So this is nice to have. So once you put that lock in, it's there. You have 3 custom modes here, which is sweet. So for me, I do a 24 FPS, and then I do a 60 FPS, and then I also do a 120 FPS, all 4K, which is nice. Overall, it's a nice camera. Feel wise, the way everything is set up on it, they made it very efficient for the everyday worker who's got to work fast on the go. But we are actually going to switch the camera now because I prefer to be using this, so we'll get into that. Okay, there we go. Sweet. So this is the camera that I was just shooting on before. Now we are on the a7S III, and I use this primarily for photo and for things like this when I need to switch back and forth. So yeah, I love that camera. That was my first full frame camera. So the main things that I've been filming with this camera so far are these YouTube videos, which is recent, and music videos. So music videos are very run and gun. We're not gonna get into that too much, but a lot of this, and basically this entire video, is based on my experience shooting music videos. One thing I also forgot to mention is that the record button is now on the a7 III, it's up here close by the shutter button rather than tucked in back here, which makes it a lot easier. The lenses that I pair with this are the Tamron 17-28, which I'm shooting on now. That's my widest lens that I have. I also use the 35mm Sigma and the 28-70 Sigma. So the cards that I use with this are the V90s. When I first started watching a7S III videos on YouTube, they were talking a lot about how you need to use the CF Express cards, Type A, something like that. These cards that are like $500 for 64 gigs, whatever. This is just stuff that's coming off the top of my mind. I don't exactly remember, okay? As time went on, creators started to let us know that, hey, you don't have to use these most expensive cards. Don't buy those right away, because depending on what format you're shooting in, whether it's the H.264 or 265, which is the new compression, or if you're shooting all intra, it depends, and you can get away with certain cards. So for me, I can shoot 4K 24, 60, and 120, all S-Log, 4K, 10-bit 422 on these V90 cards. They go for about $90, I think, to $100 for a 128 gig. I bought like 4. That seems to be more than enough for me, because usually what I do is when I'm done shooting a music video, transfer the files and then I clear the card. So realistically, I can just use one card. So there's a way to save your money right there. Get one V90 card, so save your money. One issue that I realized that I had with this a7S III 2 days into buying it was the female input for the HDMI cord that's on the camera, built in. So I noticed when I put my HDMI cord in there, and try it out, see if it works. See if this happens to you. When you plug it in, just lightly move it back and forth and see the play that you get in that in that input. I realized that the picture was cutting out of the Atomos. I realized it's not the cord, it's not the Ninja, but it's the play in the HDMI input that's attached to the a7S III. So I called VizTech. Thank you, VizTech, for helping me out. They returned and switched the cameras out, no problem. Before I even left the store, I plugged in a HDMI to the new one and wanted to see if that play was there. The play is there. Just keep an eye on that. When you're plugging in your HDMI to the camera, make sure that you put a clamp on it. If you're not putting a clamp on it, which is something I really suggest you do, don't hit it, don't bump it, because you'll run into problems. So once again, I do shoot a lot of music videos with this camera, a lot of those videos being at night. Yes, I do own a lot of lighting, but I like to have sometimes just a key light, or even sometimes no light at all. It's nice to be able to just shoot with the ambient lighting around and get the overall vibe of the scene that we're shooting. In the darks and in the shadows, it's been great. This a7S III is awesome. So it has a dual native ISO. So the native ISO changes depending on which picture profile you're in, but in S-Log, I believe it's called the high base ISO, which is 12,800. Sounds high, right? So I was scared to use it at first, but basically this 12,800 native ISO is going to produce less noise than 10,000 ISO. I don't know the science behind this, but I do know when I'm at night and I'm shooting S-Log, in my S-Log 3 settings for night, I like to have that plus 1.7, plus 2. So usually at night I do 1.7, and in order to really get that, even on a 2.8 or even a 1.4 lens, I need to boost that ISO up. So there is a few videos out there showing the best ISOs that cause the least amount of noise, and 12,800, 16,000, those are good ISOs at night. I've had no issues shooting at night so far. I'm still learning. I haven't done a lot of color grading in my life. Like I said, this is all still new to me, but I have noticed shooting S-Log at night has been wonders. Stabilization. Seems good. Go look it up for yourself, because again, I am not into the specs here. But I do know that it seems a lot better than the a7 III. I do shoot with this camera a lot handheld. I just turn on the in-body stabilization. Sometimes I take it off depending on how much motion I want. I also use my Ronin S for the smooth shots. The stabilization has gotten a lot better than in this camera here. This one's a little bit shaky, it's a little bit rough, still doable though, so don't get it twisted. If this camera's not for you, I recommend the a7 III, because the a7 III is a hybrid. It may not be able to shoot 120 or 60 at 4K, but do we really need 4K right now? To be honest, no, because professionals and even intermediate people can still shoot and kill it on 1080p. So overall, those are just my quick thoughts of the a7S III. I love the camera. I purchased it. I've made my money back on it. It was one of the best purchases I could have made for my business. I'm confident in the 4K resolution. I'm confident if I'm doing a real estate video, a wedding, anything where I do a lot of slow motion frame rates, I feel comfortable and confident when I throw it into 120, 4K, 422-bit, 10-bit, high native ISO, 12,800 for an evening shot or a low light shot. I'm confident because I know when I get home, 9 times out of 10 that footage is usable. It's not a photo camera. The 12.1 megapixel sensor is for a low light cinema camera such as the a7S III. So if you are thinking of getting a nice camera for photography, don't buy this. Buy the a7 III. It's half the price and it still matches up to enthusiast quality, even professional. The overall video beast camera for the consumer and the professional, in my opinion, is the a7S III. Thank you, Sony. I appreciate it. It's been nothing but good vibes with this camera so far, but you guys should maybe just fix that HDMI input a little bit because you may be having people frustrated. Anyways, I hope you like this content. Please like and subscribe. When you're making your choice for a camera, just take your time, don't rush it. You don't need that instant gratification. Do your research, do your budget, weigh your pros and cons and what is going to keep bringing the money in, what's gonna up your quality and things like that. Also, the autofocus on this is dope. The autofocus eye detection is sweet. Like right now, I'm looking over here at the articulating screen. It's locked in on my right eye. Now it's on my left. It's like that is just locked in. You know what I mean? You know, we're not having no issues here. We're locked in. Even at night too, when I'm shooting at night and I'm at 120 FPS, we're cranked up to like 12,800 ISO, S-Log. This thing is locking in on artists' eyes like easy. So yeah, we've got some great autofocus. Don't ever rely on autofocus though. Learn how to use manual focus, which is something that I'm learning, and I'm getting better and better every time I do it and more confident, and I understand now why some of the most expensive cameras in the world don't have autofocus. So thank you guys for watching. I know it was a long one. I appreciate it. I apologize if I'm a little bit boring or I ramble on, and I'm just trying to still get comfortable in front of the camera. You know, it's not that easy, but we're getting there. And hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I appreciate it. I'm Sam White, and we'll see you next time. Peace.